Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naranam Namaskritya Naram Chaiv Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 1, A Lifetime in Preparation, India, 1896 to 1965, Chapter number 3, A Very Nice Saintly Person. So yesterday we discussed how Prabhupada was influenced by Gandhiji's freedom movement, and then he passed the exam in a BA exam, but he didn't take the diploma. And he was appointed as manager in Bose Pharmaceuticals. There will not be such benefactors of the highest merit as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees have been. The offer of other benefits is only a deception. It is rather a great harm, whereas a benefit done by him and his followers is the truest and greatest eternal benefit. This benefit is not for one particular country causing mischief to another, but it benefits the whole universe. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Abhay's friend Narendranath Malik was insistent. He wanted Abhay to see a sadhu from Mayapur. Naren and some of his friends had already met the sadhu at his nearby ashram on Ulta Danga Junction Road, and now they wanted Abhay's opinion. Everyone within their circle of friends considered Abhay the leader. So if Naren could tell the others that Abhay also had a high regard for the sadhu, then that would confirm their own estimations. Abhay was reluctant to go, but Naren pressed him. They stood talking amidst the passerby on the crowded early evening street as a traffic of horse-drawn hackneys, ox carts, and occasional auto taxis and motor buses moved noisily on the road. Naren put his hand firmly around his friend's arm, trying to drag him forward, but while Abhay smiled but stubbornly pulled the other way. Naren argued that since they were only a few blocks away, they should at least pay a short visit. Abhay laughed and asked to be excused. People could see that the two young men were friends, but it was a curious sight. The handsome young man dressed in white khadi kurta and dhoti being pulled along by his friend. Naren explained that the sadhu, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, was a Vaishnava and a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of his disciples, a sannyasi, had visited the Malik house and had invited him to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. A few of the Maliks had gone to see him, had been very much impressed. But Abhay remained skeptical. Oh no, I know all these sadhus, he said. I'm not going. Abhay had seen many sadhus in his childhood. Every day his father had entertained at least 3 or 4 in his home. Some of them were no more than beggars, and some even smoked ganja. Gaur had been very liberal in allowing anyone who wore the saffron robes of a sannyasi to come. But did it mean that though a man was no more than a beggar or ganja smoker, he had to be considered saintly just because he dressed as a sannyasi or was collecting funds in the name of building a monastery or could influence people with his speech? No, by and large, they were a disappointing lot. Abhay had even seen a man in his neighborhood who was a beggar by occupation. In the morning, when others dressed in their work clothes and went to their jobs, this man would put on saffron cloth and go out to beg and in this way earn his livelihood. But was it fitting that such a so-called sadhu be paid a respectful visit, as if he were a guru? Naren argued that he felt that this particular sadhu was a very learned scholar, and that Abhay should at least meet him and judge for himself. Abhay wished that Naren would not behave this way, but finally he could no longer refuse his friend. Together they walked past the Parshanath Jain temple to Ultadanga, with its sign Bhaktivinoda Asan, announcing it to be the headquarters of the Gaudiya Math. When they inquired at the door, a young man recognized Mr. Malik. Naren had previously given a donation and immediately escorted them up to the roof of the second floor and into the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who was sitting and enjoying the early evening atmosphere with a few disciples and guests. Sitting with his back very straight, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appeared tall. He was slender, his arms were long, and his complexion was fair and golden. He wore round bifocals with simple frames. His nose was sharp, his forehead broad, and his expression was very scholarly, yet not at all timid. The vertical markings of Vaishnav Tilak on his forehead were familiar to Abhay, as were the simple sannyas robes that draped over his right shoulder, leaving the other shoulder and half his chest bare. He wore tulsi neck beads, and the clay Vaishnav markings of Tilak were visible at his throat, shoulder, and upper arms. A clean white Brahminical thread was looped around his neck and draped across his chest. Abhay and Naren, having both been raised in Vaishnav families, immediately offered prostrated obeisances at the sight of the reverend sannyasi. While the two young men were still rising and preparing to sit before any preliminary formalities of conversation had begun, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta immediately said to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?" Abhay could hardly believe what he had just heard. They had not even exchanged views, yet this sadhu was telling them what they should do. Sitting face to face with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Abhay was gathering his wits and trying to gain a comprehensible impression. But this person had already told them to become preachers and go all over the world. Abhay was immediately impressed, but he wasn't going to drop his intelligent skepticism. After all, there were assumptions in what the sadhu had said. Abhay had already announced himself by his dress to be a follower of Gandhi, and he felt the impulse to raise an argument. Yet, as he continued to listen to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta speak, he also began to feel won over by the sadhu's strength of conviction. He could sense that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did not care for anything but Lord Chaitanya, and that this was what made him great. This was why followers had gathered around him, and why Abhay himself felt drawn, inspired, and humbled, and wanted to hear more. But he felt obliged to make an argument to test the truth. Drawn irresistibly into discussion, Abhay spoke up in answer to the words Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had so tersely spoken in the first seconds of the meeting. Who will hear your Chaitanya's message? Abhay queried. We are a dependent country. First, India must become independent. How can we spread Indian culture if we are under British rule? Abhay had not asked haughtily means in a very proud manner, just to be provocative. Yet his question was clearly a challenge. If he were to take the sadhu's remark to them as a serious one, and there was nothing in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's demeanor to indicate that he had not been serious, Abhay felt compelled to question how he could propose such a thing while India was still dependent. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta replied in a quiet, deep voice that Krishna consciousness did not have to wait for a change in Indian politics, nor was it dependent on who ruled. Krishna consciousness was so important, so exclusively important, that it could not wait. Abhay was struck by his boldness. How could he say such a thing? The whole world of India, beyond this little Ulta Tanga rooftop, was in turmoil and seemed to support what Abhay had said. Many famous leaders of Bengal, many saints, even Gandhi himself, men who were educated and spiritually minded, all might very well have asked the same question, challenging the sadhu's relevancy. And yet he was dismissing everything and everyone as if they were of no consequence. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta continued. Whether one power or another rule was a temporary situation. But the eternal reality is Krishna consciousness, and the real self is a spirit soul. No man-made political system, therefore, could actually help humanity. This was the verdict of the Vedic scriptures and the line of spiritual masters. Although everyone is an eternal servant of God, when one takes himself to be temporary body and regards the nation of his birth as worshipable, he comes under illusion. He comes under illusion if he thinks I'm this body and this place where I'm born is worshipable. The leaders and followers of the world's political movements, including the movement for Swaraj, were simply cultivating this illusion. Real welfare work, whether individual, social, or political, should help prepare a person for his next life and help him re-establish his eternal relationship with the Supreme. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had articulated these ideas many times before in his writings. So he had written, there has not been, there will not be such benefactors of the highest merit as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees have been. The offer of other benefits is only a deception. It is rather a great harm. Whereas the benefit done by him and his followers is the truest and greatest eternal benefit. This benefit is not for one particular country causing mischief to another, but it benefits the whole universe. The kindness that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown to jivas absolves them eternally from all wants, from all inconveniences, and from all the distresses. That kindness does not produce any evil, and the jivas who have it will not be the victims of the evils of the world. And actually, it is true, even after independence, India hasn't developed spiritually. We're trying to develop economically, technologically, in other ways, but not spiritually, which India is called the cradle of spirituality. That is where the spirituality is born. People follow it, but to a certain extent, and that too in a hodgepodge way. Everybody thinks I'm doing spirituality better than anybody else. Whether we listen to or follow Osho or Brahma Kumaris or Radha Swami or Art of Living, so many institutions are there. But first of all, what is spirituality? As Prabhupada here or Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj is mentioning, that the benefit is not for one particular country causing mischief to another, but it benefits the whole universe. So what's the benefit? What is it that we are talking about? That is following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Bhakti movement, Bhakti Yoga. Others, they might sound good, but ultimately has no real benefit because all deal with body only. They don't go beyond bodily level. As Abhay listened attentively to the arguments of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he recalled a Bengali poet who had written that even less advanced civilizations like China and Japan were independent, and yet India labored under political oppression. Abhay knew well the philosophy of nationalism, which stressed that Indian independence had to come first. An oppressed people was a reality. The British slaughter of innocent citizens was a reality, and independence would benefit people. Spiritual life was a luxury that could be afforded only after independence. In the present times, the cause of national liberation from the British was the only relevant spiritual movement. The people's cause was in itself God. Yet because Abhay had been raised a Vaishnava, he appreciated what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was saying. Abhay had already concluded that this was certainly not just another questionable sadhu, and he perceived the truth in what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. This sadhu was not concocting his own philosophy, and he wasn't simply proud or belligerent, even though he spoke in a way that kicked out practically every other philosophy. He was speaking the eternal teachings of the Vedic literature and the sages, and Abhay loved to hear it. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, speaking sometimes in English and sometimes in Bengali, and sometimes quoting the Sanskrit verses of the Bhagavad Gita, spoke of Sri Krishna as the highest Vedic authority. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna had declared that a person should give up whatever duty he considers religious and surrenders unto him, the personality of God. Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. And the Srimad Bhagavatam confirmed the same thing. Dharma pravachita ketavatara parmo nirmit saranam sata. All other forms of religion are impure and should be thrown out, and only Bhagavad Dharma, performing one's duties to please the Supreme Lord, should remain. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's presentation was so cogent that anyone who accepted the Shastras would have to accept his conclusion. The people were now faithless, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, said Bhakti Siddhanta, and therefore they no longer believed that devotional service could remove all anomalies. Even on the political scene, he went on to criticize anyone who was ignorant of the soul and yet claimed to be a leader. He even cited names of contemporary leaders and pointed out their failures, and he emphasized the urgent need to render the highest good to humanity by educating people about the eternal soul and soul's relation to Krishna and devotional service. But for this, in the middle of independence movement, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, to say this convincingly, that takes lots of conviction. And that too in Bengal or Calcutta, where there were so many freedom fighters. Subhash Chandra Bose was based there. And Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was very well convinced about this philosophy. Abhay had never forgotten the worship of Lord Krishna or his teachings in Bhagavad Gita, and his family had always worshipped Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose mission Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was espousing. As this Gaudiya Math people worshipped Krishna, he also had worshipped Krishna throughout his life and had never forgotten Krishna. But now he was astounded to hear the Vaishnava philosophy presented so masterfully. Despite his involvement in college, marriage, and the national movement and other affairs, he had never forgotten Krishna. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was now stirring up within him his original Krishna consciousness. And by the words of his spiritual master, not only was he remembering Krishna, but he felt his Krishna consciousness being enhanced 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. What had been unspoken in Abhay's boyhood, what had been vague in Jagannath Puri, what he had been distracted from at college, what he had been protected in by his father who surged forth within Abhay in responsive feelings, and he wanted to keep it. He felt himself defeated, but he liked it. He suddenly realized that he had never before been defeated. But this defeat was not a loss, it was an immense gain. So Srila Prabhupada says, I was from a Vaishnava family, so I could appreciate what he was preaching. Of course, he was speaking to everyone, but he found something in me. And I was convinced about his argument and mode of presentation. I was so much struck with wonder, I could understand. Here is a proper person who can give a real religious idea. It was late. Abhay and Narayan had been talking with him for more than 2 hours. One of the brahmacharis gave them each a bit of prasadam in their open palms, and they rose gratefully and took their leave. They walked down the stairs and onto the street. The night was dark. Here and there, a light was burning, and there were some open shops. Abhay pondered in great satisfaction what he had just heard. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's explanation of the independence movement was as a temporary, incomplete cause had made a deep impression on him. He felt himself less a nationalist and more a follower of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. He also thought that it would have been better if he were not married. This great personality was asking him to preach. He could have immediately joined, but he was married, and to leave his family would be an injustice. Walking away from the ashram, Naren turned to his friend. So, Abhay, what was your impression? What do you think of him? Oh, he is wonderful, replied Abhay. The message of Lord Chaitanya is in the hands of a very expert person, Srila Prabhupada. I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately, not officially, but in my heart. I was thinking that I had met a very nice, saintly person. So, well, a little break is there, so we'll stop here and take up the rest of the chapter tomorrow. See, anybody has any questions or comments?
Prabhuji, I have a question. To say that India has not advanced spiritually, we are so much better than other countries in terms of our morals, our if you go by count 100 households here and 100 households in India, you will find more households praying and with spiritualism, more households, any kind of spiritualism. And especially now when they are trying to establish religious tourism across the country with this government, I think worldwide, India is one of the few countries where people are more spiritual than other countries.
Well, first of all, there is difference between spiritualism and being religious person.
Yes.
Yeah, they're religious.
Yes.
But the religion is mostly of karma kanda, on the karma kanda basis, that I do this, and I get some more money, power, position, or this or
Because
that. I want to enjoy.
In the past, people wanted followers. Like Facebook people have followers, right? So the focus was not to advance spiritually, but creating followers and creating an empire of their own, small empire of their own, by having followers. But if you consider 1,000 households here and 1,000 households, you'll find more people praying in India than anywhere else in the world. That's been my, am I wrong?
Yeah, praying, yes. Puja part, definitely. But that's not spirituality. That's not just spirituality. And moreover, from the place where Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken, Krishna, Ram, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all these incarnations have appeared. India should have been way further than where it is right now in spirituality, and should have been teaching others how to make progress spiritually, but it didn't happen.
That is true.
So that is where the problem is, because I can speak for myself. I never touched Bhagavad Gita till I came in contact with devotees in Dallas. ISKCON devotees in Dallas. I never even touched Bhagavad Gita all that while I was in India.
True, true.
Forget about reading it, forget about trying to understand it. I never even touched it.
Hmm.
Now by ISKCON's preaching, it's been distributed, Bhagavad Gita has been distributed, it's still going on, and classes are going on, people are joining, trying to understand. Where was it when we were growing up?
Yes, that's true.
So that's where we are lacking. And we can say it's because of the government, previous governments, they did this and this, whatever. And also, you touched upon that religious tourism. Again, I had, when I was in India, I had meetings with IAS officers of Haryana. We were developing Kurukshetra. And I said, why India is the leader in spirituality? Why don't we promote spiritual tourism? Don't promote religious tourism. Promote spiritual tourism. Where there should be centers everywhere teaching people of spirituality. Okay, show them temples, great. But then what? And at the end of the day, what?
It's a tussle between technology, materialism, advancement, or religious or spiritual advancement. People will any day pick up technology and material advancement rather than spiritual advancement.
So, I mean, it both can go hand in hand. That's not a problem. But let's teach them spirituality, not just going to temple, doing this puja and asking Bhagwan for something material. That's only religion. It is still better. I'm not saying it is bad. Better than not doing anything, but that's not the end of it. That was my point.
No, you're right to some extent, but अगर आप 1000, मैं सिर्फ ये कह रही हूँ कि अगर आप 1000 households किसी भी country में लेंगे और इंडिया में लेंगे, you will still find more people praying, and whatever be their religion, they could be Muslims, they could be Hindus, they could be Parsis, but still they could be Christians. Out of the 1000 households, there would be more religious people. I'm not saying spirituality, but yes, more would follow.
Yeah, definitely. Religion is very prominent in India. Whichever religion one follows, no doubt.
Correct.
But we have to go beyond that. That's all.
And everybody feels my religion is superior. My caste.
That's fine. That is fine. As Prabhupada also said, if your religion teaches you love of God, it's the best thing.
It's the best. Yeah.
That you're developing love for God. But are you developing? I mean, that's the question he would ask them.
Since we, in listening to you, the love of God has taken forefront in our lives. But not before that.
It's all Prabhupada's mercy.
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Vanda. Chalo. Thank you. You all have safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.